Hi, I'm Derek Ashong. Welcome to the stream. This is our 100th show since our launch earlier this year. It's a very special one for us. Thank you for watching us. Today, we're looking at Libya in limbo. How will the country step into the future after more than 40 years of Muammar Gaddafi's rule? Our digital producer, Malika Bilal, is here looking out for your live feedback. Also returning to the couch with us for a second day is Syrian-American hip-hop artist Omar Offendum. Omar, great to have you back.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Also with us is Mark Vlasic, international criminal lawyer and professor at Georgetown. I know you're a member of the U.S. delegation at the trial of the 1988 Pan Am Lockerbie bombing. Mark, it's great to have you here. Talk to us a little bit about what you see as the difference between Muammar Gaddafi's role in society today vis-a-vis how he was seen only maybe a year or two ago.
I think his role is going to be that, hopefully, of a dictator and the despot of history. I mean, he's a terrible force that caused terrible atrocities around the world, frankly. You know, my first interaction with his regime was at the Pan Am Lockerbie trial in the Netherlands, where 270 people were killed due to his henchmen. And so I think hopefully the world community will look towards the future and try to make a better Libya and help them move forward.
Well, this is exactly what we're going to be discussing today, is what is on deck for Libya moving forward. Gaddafi is a matter of the past. We want to see what's going to be happening in their future. It's great to have all of you here. We're looking forward to this conversation. Remember, this show is always about you, our community. So if you have a story that you want to share with us, follow us on Twitter at AJStream. You might wind up right here in the stream.
As soon as the first news broke about the capture and subsequent killing of Gaddafi, netizens took to the web to confirm the reports and spread the news. Several keywords began sprouting up across the net almost immediately, including Libya, Misrata, Al Jazeera, and the NTC, the abbreviation for Libya's ruling National Transitional Council. But the Libyan leader's name has circulated the farthest, with Twitter users from China and Australia to Russia and South Africa posting their thoughts using the hashtag Gaddafi. Now, a short time later, video began to surface of the moment Gaddafi was captured by Libyan fighters in the coastal city of Sirte and the moments after his death. That video I'll bring up for you here. The at times graphic video that is being wildly circulated prompted a drawing from well-known cartoonist Carlos Latouf, who tweeted, "Gaddafi cartoon got 1,300 hits in about 20 minutes. But the circumstances of the death sparked a firestorm online and prompted comparisons to the deaths of former Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden, both of whose names began trending on Twitter. Ali Abunima tweets, "Interesting that Gaddafi wasn't given the traditional Islamic funeral rites of being thrown in the sea without an autopsy." Now, that tweet, of course, is tongue-in-cheek. But of course, many of you are sharing your comments and your videos and your questions with us. If you want to be in the stream, here's a quick video on how to do it.
Hi, I'm Ben Connors, and I work for the stream. One of my jobs is to make these little I'm in the stream videos, but I need your help. Whoever you are, wherever you are, we want you to send us a video. Tell us your name, something interesting, and then say, I'm in the stream. Keep it short, upload the video to YouTube, then tweet us the link at AJStream, and you can wind up here on Al Jazeera.
There's hope and happiness, but there's also trepidation and fear. For the first time in more than 40 years, Libya is stepping into a new era. How will 6.5 million Libyans deal with life after Muammar Gaddafi, and what does their future hold? I want to show you some exclusive images from Al Jazeera of Muammar Gaddafi. Now, this is the Libyan leader just after his death. He was killed on Thursday when rebels stormed his hometown of Sirte. He died of wounds to his head, legs, and stomach after he was captured, and his body is now in a mosque in Misrata. Gaddafi's government was deposed 2 months ago after opposition fighters captured the capital of Tripoli. News of this death triggered celebration not just across Libya, but also in other nations such as Bahrain and Syria. We've got some additional footage that I think is definitely worth hearing, and I would like for you to take a listen as well. In the city of Homs in Syria, women and children gathered on the streets cheering and waving banners, congratulating Libya and chanting, "Bashar, your turn has come," referring to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Joining us now on Skype is Libyan opposition fighter Muhammad Ali. He's currently an intern doctor at Tripoli Medical Center. Also with us is Libyan blogger Ali Tweel, who has provided a constant flow of information through social media on unfolding events. Muhammad Ali and both of you, welcome to the stream. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Derek,
Thank
for
you.
having us today.
Absolutely. Muhammad, I'm going to actually begin.
We are connecting. Maybe I need to disconnect and you connect to me.
Oh, Ali, I hear you okay, but I'm going to start the first question with Muhammad, actually. Muhammad, so you've been fighting in this conflict. It seems that the conflict has come to an end ostensibly, but now you have a lot of armed people around the country. Do you believe that there will be a peaceful transition moving forward, or do you think that conflict in Libya is going to continue further?
Well, first of all, I would like to congratulate the whole Libyan people and send my condolences to everyone who has fallen for this revolution to make Libya, quote from Chavez, free of cancer now. Second, yeah, I believe there will be a peaceful transformation here in Libya. I'm not really worried that much about guns spread all around Libya, because up to certain days back, I think what guns and weapon represented is safety to the Libyan people because of Gaddafi. So I really have high optimistic hopes, and I'm really happy. I think Libya, Gaddafi made it so bad that from this point on, nothing can be worse. You know, we only have, you know, we're going up the stairs from this point on. We can't go down.
Well, let me ask you a question then. It's nice to hear your optimism. Do you believe that the NTC will seek retribution against Gaddafi loyalists?
Well, NTC have been doing a lot of things in a really wise way. I think Mustafa Abdul Jalil and Dr. Mahmoud Jibril have been really wise in handling a lot of issues. And yes, I do believe they're going to be a huge, you know, they're going to be trying to control the situation. Everyone if someone did something requires trials, they will be put in trial. And if you're free, no evidence, then you can go out. If you are condemned with killing someone or raping someone, and so you're obviously going to get punished for it.
Well, let me bring this similar question to you, Ali Tweel. Now, in the wake of Gaddafi, looking at a nation that has never really had a strong infrastructure, what do you think is the likelihood that the NTC will be able to have a smooth transition in building an infrastructure that never existed?
Well, I believe that the NTC has done well. We have been recognized from the entire world, so I believe in the NTC. And I think by the end of Gaddafi, that's it. I mean, they should start now the transition. Nothing is stopping them. The top of the pyramid has gone. Now everything will fall down. His regime, everything. Nobody, even if there are few people are still believing him, staying homes, that's it for them. It's the end.
We've got a lot of commentary coming in from our online community. It's been happening all day. We actually have a storify that is full of comments, but let's get to you, Malika, to see what people are saying.
Exactly, and I'll pose this question to you, Mark. This is someone who's saying that this is just the beginning for Libya. Building Libya, taking over from NATO is going to be harder. What do you think about that?
I think this is, this revolution was the people's revolution in Libya. I think NATO obviously played a supporting role in this. But I think that the NATO forces, and particularly the British and the Europeans and the Americans, were very careful to not make this NATO's fight. And I think that they are there in a supportive role. Of course, the international community is there to help the Libyans with their transition. But I think they're there only to the extent that Libyans want their assistance.
Well, let me push back on that a little bit, because we know that countries have interest, and NATO has spent a lot of time money and person power in this effort. Aren't they going to want some kind of concessions? We already have heard that European countries have been meeting with NTC officials, hopefully trying to set up their own positioning. So what is the quid pro quo?
I think what countries really want, and particularly the United States and the Europeans, but I think the countries around the world, is a peaceful Libya, one that wants to engage with the world, one that is not trying to spread terror around the world, one wants to do business with the rest of the world. That's what they want. They want some peace and security in the world. And so I think that while there are, of course, countries, particularly some of our friends in Europe, that had strong relationships with the regime before, want to continue to have those strong relationships. But I think we should all recognize that in order for Libya to move forward, one important aspect is the business community. It needs more investment. It needs more people who want to do business with Libya. For many, many years, the world shunned Libya because of its terrible leader. And now, hopefully, there's a new page. And now, hopefully, Libya is open for investment. It's open to do business. And it's open to putting more Libyans to work.
So, Omar, I want to pose the next question to you. We've seen revolution across the region. We've seen successful revolutions, at least ostensibly, in Tunisia, in Egypt. Now we see Libya. But look at what happened. Tunisia in January, Libya in February, Egypt in February. Things are still not stable, right? You look at Libya, and there's been a much, much greater degradation of the infrastructure, fighting on the ground. What do you think about the prospects for a smooth transition moving forward?
Well, I mean, I'm generally an optimistic person. I think the things that I've seen and heard from, the Libyan people, especially the youth who are involved in the movements, stuff on Twitter, and even my conversations with people who've been there, makes me very, very hopeful for Libya and for the future of Libya. And you kind of mentioned it in the question itself. The revolution is not over once the dictator is ousted or killed or whatever. It really has only just begun, and there's so much more work to be done. And I really do believe that Libyan people are ready to, to carry that weight and to make the country what it deserves to be, which is the beautiful country of Libya that we all know it can be.
So, Muhammad Ali, let me come back to you then on that similar point. You are a young person, you are a medical professional as well as a revolutionary. You're looking with optimism for the future of your country. What are some of the biggest challenges you see in making sure that you see Libya evolve into the nation you'd like it to be?
Well, I can, to be honest, the biggest thing that worries me right now, but not to the point that I'm really worried about it, is the fact that the weapons spread all around the country. But as I said earlier on, the fact that these weapons, these guns, these are the tools that Gaddafi has used to actually shut the people's mouth from the start of this revolution. So there are right now the means that have been used for them to actually secure their freedom. So I think by the event that happened today, by the killing of Gaddafi, this whole war is ended. So there's no need to have guns anymore at home. Nobody feels right now that they really have problems concerning safety. So I think Libyan people will be wise enough and will actually start giving away their weapons to the NTC, and things will go smoothly. And like I said earlier, it has been a horrible 42 years. Gaddafi made it so bad that, he can only go up from here.
Yeah, Malika.
Mohammed, on that note, I'd like to pose a question to Ali Tawil. We have a couple of tweets here. One here from Bassam Septi, who says the hardest challenge has not yet started. There'll be revenge, killings, and chaos, just like what happened in Iraq. And then another one here from Ibrahim Daji, who says, well done to the rebels for finding Gaddafi, but if they want a democracy, shouldn't they have had a fair trial? And the last tweet on that note is one from Vote for Africa, who says, what's the update on the Black Africans who are being unjustly targeted in Libya during this transitional phase? So I wonder if you could post an answer to that.
To which one are you asking?
That was for Omar Tawil, but if we've lost him.
Ali Tawil, can you still hear us?
Excuse me.
Yes, I can hear you, but it's barely. I don't know. The sound is very not clear. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. It's a few tweets asking about what is the update on, one, the Black Africans who were targeted unjustly during this transitional period.
Sorry, I can't hear. Sorry, I can't hear the question.
Okay, we're going to come back to you in just a moment with that. Mohammed, I actually want to come back to you in the meantime. The point that's being raised here is that there has been violence on the ground. We've seen some people, African migrants, be targeted in Libya. We've actually seen a very violent end to Muammar Gaddafi. We don't know exactly what happened, but we've seen footage that showed he was captured alive, and now he's dead. There hasn't been a trial. Is it not possible that the culture of violence that Gaddafi himself helped to sow might continue moving forward in the new Libya?
Okay, first I'm going to tackle the Gaddafi issue you just mentioned. Well, if you actually can see in the first footage that Gaddafi was in, he was actually covered in a lot of blood. So you can't say that he was killed during the transition, but he might have been shot earlier on, and due to bleeding for this period of time, that could have been the cause of death. So you can't say he has been killed after being captured, because if you actually concentrate on one of the first video, you can hear the rebels saying that we need him alive. We need him alive. It's like I'm not saying that there has not been any violence or there's not been any foul acting during this whole revolution. I wouldn't be realistic if I said that, but it has been an individual problem. You can see that as a problem that had been organized, as Gaddafi used to do in Misrata, as in rape and in killing and robbing people's places and houses and cars and so on and so on. No. As for the African, the black people in Libya and African, there has been a few problems with that, I have to admit, but the issue here is very delicate, because when the rebel got to Tripoli, it has been use of a lot of mercenaries by Gaddafi, and most of them were originally in Libya in the first place. So not all of them have been imported. So most of them have been regular workers in different areas. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them have been regular workers here, janitors, different kind of jobs having here. At the beginning, because there's a lot of weapons all around the place, it has reached a point where you cannot be sure of the person in front of you. So the easiest way was actually to capture most of them till a trial comes. If some of them there's proof against them, then they'll be punished. If they're not, they will be released out. And you can actually come here. There's a lot of media here. You can see there is African black people in Libya going around freely in the streets of Tripoli.
So Mohammed, basically you're arguing that you don't believe that violence will continue now. You think that as of today, things will start to settle down?
Yes, hopefully it will. I'm not saying it's going to be over 100%. This cannot be really realistic, but I'm going to be optimistic and say that it will be reduced to a really, really good point. As for revenge, the comments that's been said earlier on the tweet, there has been a lot of tolerance here in Tripoli. I'm telling you that because I know some of my neighbors have been volunteer in Gaddafi's troop, and right now they're living in the streets, and they're actually living their normal life. And you can ask any Libyan people outside, there have been a huge amount of tolerance. To tell you, I was optimistic about this, that Libyan will not be so vendettic and not thirsty for blood, but I didn't think it's gonna be really this good. There has been a lot of tolerance here. This is one of the issues I don't know if media have tackled, but you can really come to the ground and you will realize that.
Well, I think this is a very interesting point, and I think there will be a lot of media reporting on the ground. Omar, I want to draw your attention to this image on my screen, which we had actually discussed a little bit earlier. And you see these dictators having their, being painted out. Ben Ali, then you see Mubarak, you see Gaddafi, and now we have Saleh and Assad remaining. What do you think the fall of Gaddafi means for the sentiments in the region as a whole?
Well, I mean, I think it does really symbolize a lot for people who have been fighting in places like Yemen and places like Syria, you know, that there is hope, you know, and that what they're doing, you know, can lead eventually to some positive steps. You know, I don't really see a lot of people necessarily rejoicing in the death of somebody as much as it is the possibility of what can come later, you know. An interesting thing to note about that cartoon is that it actually says ash-shab, so the people, is what it says on the person's body who's carrying that painting stroke. So, yeah, you know, I mean, I think it's all part of this greater thing that people are watching, and kind of there's mixed emotions. There's a bit of unease. Nobody really knows where this is leading. There's that optimism. There's a lot of pessimism and skepticism, even from our parents' generation, who may have seen revolutions like these happen before and are saying, you know what, this is just going to lead to another bad guy coming.
Well, that's actually a very interesting point, because we're seeing the same comment coming in online.
Exactly. Ruto tweets, Libya will never recover. One uncooperative dictator down, puppet leadership to follow. So, Mark, we see the NTC, we know who's going to take power next, at least the group that's going to take power, but what does this mean for Libya? What does this mean for justice? And then can you also maybe answer the question that I think got lost, that someone asked earlier, if they wanted a fair trial and if they wanted democracy in Libya, should Gaddafi have had a fair trial?
All great questions, and I think what's important to recognize in this particular case is when it comes to the indictment of Gaddafi, he was one of 3 people indicted by the International Criminal Court in The Hague. His son was also indicted, as was his chief of military intelligence. And I think while people are obviously very focused on what happened to Gaddafi today, I think we should not lose focus on the fact that those 2 individuals are still at large. And I think it's very important for the international community to work together and work with the Libyan officials to try to bring these individuals to justice. And then the next question is, what happens to them? Do they actually go to The Hague, or are they tried domestically in Libya? That, of course, is an issue for Libya, for the Transitional Council. And so we'll see what happens moving forward. But I think it's important to bring these individuals to justice and not just focus on one leader, because he is but one figure. And I think that will be a larger question for Libya is, what does it do looking back at the past? Does it want to look at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission has been used in past war conflict situations to see if they can bring some sort of sense of justice and understanding for the victims of so many people who suffered under the Gaddafi regime.
So I actually want to take this international question back to you, Mohammed. And I'm just curious on your perspective, given what's happened in neighboring countries during this revolutionary period, given what's just been accomplished in Libya now, what do you think the impact will be on those regimes that are still seeing uprising in Yemen, for example, or in Syria?
Yeah, I was earlier talking to my friend. I was telling him, like, Bashar must be right now is scared as hell because, you know, he's seeing the image, he's seeing his idol right now. If you see the whole event that happened in the Syrian revolution, that everything Gaddafi has done throughout his media, Bashar have been trying to imitate. And I don't think this is one of the scenarios he want to, you know, end up in the same as Gaddafi is.
Wow. So go ahead, Omar.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, there has been a lot of solidarity we've seen in the protests back and forth. I remember seeing protest footage from Libya where they were saying, Ya Syria la tkhafi, al-Assad ba'd al-Gaddafi. So, oh, Syria, don't you worry, Assad is coming after Gaddafi. So there have been a lot of back and forth, kind of even humorous chants between the 2 countries who recognize, you know, somewhat of the similarities that they're experiencing.
So I want to just push in another direction really quickly, because I'm glad that we're all optimistic, but I always wonder with these things. I mean, we know that, yes, the revolution takes time. In having so many countries in flux in the region at the same time, on the one hand, it could be a wonderful wave of democracy, but could it not be a similar domino effect if some of these revolutions do not culminate in true democratic reforms? Could there be something worse coming down the road?
I think anything is possible. If there's one thing we've learned from this is that you can't predict anything. Nobody saw any of this coming to begin with, so nobody can really say with any certainty what's going to happen next. I mean, I personally like to, you know, build on optimism and on, you know, the good energy and the goodwill of people, and, you know, so I'm hoping for the best, and I think that's what most people are doing.
I love it. So I want to ask you, Mohammed, to stay with us. We're going to continue this conversation in our post show. There was a very interesting tweet that Malika had. Do you want to read the last one? You get the final word.
Sure. Haftim tweets, if the common denominator for united Libya was the dictator, what is being done for reconciliation and chance to stay united? And I think that's a good thing to look into the post show.
That's what we're going to talk about in the post show. What is it going to take to stay united? Join us at stream.aljazeera.com. You can find more information about this story there. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Also, Omar. Tweet us at AJStream. We will see you online. Hey, welcome back. This is our post show. We're going to continue the conversation about what is happening in Libya. We've got some great people with us joining the conversation. And I actually want to come back to this question. Again, Abu Hamad says, now that Gaddafi is dead, Libya should pray that they will not suffer the same fate as Iraq after Saddam was killed. So, Omar, I'm going to come back to you on this one. What do you think needs to happen to ensure that Libya's transition is different?
I think I can't really answer that question myself because, I'm not in Libya and I'm not there on the ground, nor am I a Libyan person who can say what should happen. But really, from what I have seen, from people like, the ones that we've been interviewing so far, there is a lot of, a lot of intellectual capital that's coming into the country, and a lot of people who really have that agenda of moving forward in a positive direction on their minds. And it's something that they've wanted to see for such a long time, and they're not going to let this moment pass, And so it's beautiful to see even people who are raised in the United States, who just pack up and leave and go to Libya and say, I'm going to start something new here for my people,
Well, speaking of starting something new, let's go to Muhammad on this once again. Back to Muhammad Ali. This question of what happens, particularly I'm curious about the relationship between the NTC and NATO moving forward. What would you like to see the role of the international community be in the rebuilding of Libya?
Well, I would like to see Libya right now is starting a whole new chapter, which is going to be a really hard one because Gaddafi left this country for so long without any institutions whatsoever. So the actual Libya, the NTC actually is going to need as much help as he can get from the whole world actually in building this country and supporting it. So I really would like to see worldwide support for the NTC, starting from the Libyan people going to the whole nation of the world.
Okay, so speaking of the Libyan people, then I want to bring in another Skype guest who's with us. He's Libyan-American Dr. Mahmoud Trena. He's traveled extensively within Libya, actually tending to the wounded and helping with medical supplies. Mahmoud, thank you so much for being with us. I want to riff off of what Mohammed just said. He's speaking about the need for the whole world to participate, and you're a member of the Libyan diaspora. What do you believe the role of both Libyans outside of the country, but also of the international community, can and should be moving forward?
Well, I think this is the moment, all Libyans obviously have been waiting for. The Libyan diaspora is a little bit different than other diasporas in the sense that the Libyan diaspora was caused by Gaddafi, and most Libyans who have actually lived outside of Libya have done so because they fled the regime and not actually seeking out better opportunity. So I think the diaspora is actually going to become very important in the rebuilding of Libya. There's going to be a lot of issues, though, with that, with the expat community coming back in terms of their knowledge of the country and their knowledge of the way people work and how things work. But I think they're going to be a crucial step in terms of the rebuilding of Libya. The international community is also going to be very important. One of the issues inside Libya is that there's a lack of capacity based on the destruction of institutions and all the core foundations of society inside Libya under the Gaddafi regime. And so the rebuilding of that capacity is going to become very difficult. There's a lack of human capacity to a certain degree, and I think the international community is going to need to help with that. I think the Libyan government needs to be strong in putting the proper conditions for that assistance, but I think it's going to be needed.
Okay, now Mark, I want to come back to something that you had mentioned earlier. And we were in your initial intro, we were talking a little bit about the change of the positioning of Gaddafi today vis-a-vis a couple of years ago. And you mentioned that, this is a person who had committed significant crimes against humanity, but we've also seen him be embraced by Western governments, particularly since he, quote unquote, renounced terrorism. He participated in the conflict against Al-Qaeda. So you've seen relationships with the US improve, the UK, Germany, France. What happens now that he's gone and these countries have turned against him? A lot of people are expressing a certain cynicism. At True Value Metric is saying, if Gaddafi would have faced trial, not been killed, wouldn't it allow for more info on how other governments supported him?
And I think we'll see some of that evidence come forth if in fact his son and his chief of intelligence are tried. I think the challenge with international relations is countries, particularly those involved in the United Nations, which is the vast majority of them out there who are recognized by the UN, come to the UN, come to engage in dialogue, to learn from others, and try to engage in a process whereby we are not in conflict with one another. So I think it's understandable that countries want to maintain relationships with all regimes around the world, with all countries around the world. I think the important thing looking at this particular matter is how do we move this forward, and how does the international community, which of course engaged with Gaddafi in the past, can better engage with the new government and help them get things going in that particular country. And I think we shouldn't lose track of the fact that when we look at Libya, we look at a lot of courageous individuals who are really putting their necks on the line, not just what happened in the past with the revolution, but also moving forward. It's going to take a lot of courageous people to make the tough choices to establish a system of government that everyone decides they support. And I think what you see in many countries going through transition is if they're used to a strong man, it's really easy for someone to decide, well, I'll be the next strong person. I'll be the one trying to take command and control.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I've already seen people talking about some of the possible options. And I actually want to come to our two Libyans on this point. I'm going to start with Muhammad Ali on this question. I saw a person mention today, actually a couple of people mentioned today, that they felt that Libya might move to a constitutional monarchy, that they felt that not only were injustices committed against the Libyan people, but also against the former monarch. Do you believe that a constitutional monarchy is a viable structure for the future of Libya?
Well, I don't really know how to answer this question, because I'm not really, to tell you honest, political-wise, I'm not really informed that much.
Do you think they should bring the king back? That's what I want to know.
Nah, I don't think that's possible, because it's like when you come from one dictatorship, you don't go into, to be in a kingdom, a one-man country again. There is this kind of fear about this kind of, these kind of terms, to run from Gaddafi being, actually he was more than a king during his rule in Libya. So to go on and bring someone else and say, like, you're taking the power from the Libyan hand again, and say you can't vote anymore for choosing whoever is going to be the head of your country again, it doesn't make sense,
Let's get Mahmoud's take on this as well. I mean, some have described Gaddafi, and I've actually got some people tweeting at this point to me today. Some have described him as the, quote, king of kings. But yet you had some officials on, actually, Al Jazeera, we were reporting earlier today, that were calling for a constitutional monarchy. Do you think that you should bring the king back?
No, well, the King of Kings statement was the statement he named for himself at the African Union meeting a couple of years ago, and he had all leaders of Africa name him the King of Kings. So it's a self-given moniker. In terms of my opinion, I think an issue of a constitutional monarchy is not really widely accepted among Libya. There's a small fraction of Libyans that I think would support that. But I think by and large, the era of the king is long gone. It was an 18-year period in Libyan rule. Libya doesn't have a history of a monarchy that's long established. It was from 1951 to 1969. The current leader, the current prince has been out of Libya for a long time. And I think if he wants to participate in a freely elected government, that people would be happy to let him participate. But I think the issue of a constitutional monarchy, in my opinion, and most people that I talk to, is not something people would accept or interested in, or anything that has a viable option in Libya.
Omar?
Yeah, I just had a question for either one of you. Something that we hear about with Libya sometimes is that there's, potential for tribalism to play a factor you know, in the way that this country moves forward. What do either of you think about that?
Well, in terms of my perspective, you know, Libya is actually relatively, compared to most of the other countries in the Middle East, you know, we don't have Sunni Shia differences. We don't have major ethnic or differences. There is about 10% of the population is Berber, which is the major ethnic difference, but they generally are relatively unified with the rest of the country. So I don't see those major differences being an issue. There are tribal and regional issues, but I think you'll find that in any of the older world countries. And I don't think they're going to be major issues in the long run once people actually form parties and ideas. Currently, in the Gaddafi system, there was a complete lack of ideas. So everybody's allegiance was to their city, tribe, area. But I think once you have a free flow, a democratic system, a free flow of ideas, I think people's allegiances will be to their ideology and their thought process and who they agree to and what somebody's political background is rather than what city they come from. So I think it is an issue, but I think it's going to slowly go away with time, and I don't think it'll be a major factor in the next stage of Libya.
Mohammed, I want to ask you a personal question, if I may, because you have sacrificed a lot to be fighting in this revolution. You are a medical intern now. You have your whole future ahead of you. Personally, what do you feel about your own possibilities in the new Libya?
Well, to tell you the truth, before this whole revolution actually went on, before the 17th of February, I had this idea of, you know, leaving the country and go actually start a new life, because the health institution here, the medical corporation in general, is in a really bad shape. So I didn't see myself to live in Libya. But since the event and the revolution, it's like this whole thing went out of the window, you know. Everything I think about right now is how I'm gonna be able to do for this country, because I love this country so much. I only want to stay here and help out in any way possible.
And we'll leave that as the final word. Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you, Mahmoud. Thank you, Omar, for being with us, and thank you, Mark, as well. Wonderful job, Malika. We're going to continue this conversation about the future of Libya online. Tweet us at AJStream. We will see you online.